Welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. Big winner last night, Taylor. So if you're going to listen to anybody's advice on this show, lean towards Taylor for sure. We are here to break down the 5-game slate over at DraftKings. Tiny main slate. I knew that was going to happen after 2 straight 12-gamers. So a little bit more palatable as far as a breakdown goes, but it's going to be tricky as far as, building a winning lineup. Just because sometimes 5-man stacks aren't the way to go on a small slate. Anyways, this video is sponsored by DFS Hero. If you're looking for a lamp optimizer / tool to help you get a takedown, give them a shot, 50% off discount if you hit our link in the video description below. Also, keep an eye out for the NBA Showdown slate. I broke that down earlier today. You can catch it at the end of this video or just hit up our channel. If we help you in any way, please give this video a like. And also consider subscribing to the channel so you get alerts for all the videos we put out. And also just doing those things helps us know that we're helping you and that, things are going well. So let's dive right into it, Taylor. Let's look at the pitchers first. Keep the same format that we've been doing lately. Obviously, Tyler Glasnow looks awesome up top. I'm kind of just going to lock him in. It's a 5-game slate. Reds strike out a lot. He's at home. He's awesome. So only issue is he's 10.4K, but he's got by far the best projection. The matchup is good. He's in the optimal 66% of the time. Only downside is price and chalkiness. Do you care?
Probably not, just because he projects so much better than everyone else. 10-4 is not even that cumbersome. Like, you can argue he should be 11 to 12K on this slate, and 10-4 is not really that bad. Good matchup at home against Cincinnati. There is some power, but he's not really a guy that allows a lot of homers to begin with. It's probably just a pretty clear don't overthink it spot, and you can mix it up with your bats or your SP2.
Yeah, obviously it's a small slate. If you want to stack a bunch of Reds and just get them crazy instant leverage on a tiny slate, you can do that. It's baseball. Anything can happen. But Glasnow has been in pretty ridiculous form. 30-plus fantasy points in each of his last 4 starts. I mean, that's just kind of like the norm for him at this point, and they do have a lot of Ks in the lineup. So I don't see the reason to get cute here. I'm with you. I'm going to fire up Glasnow. If I'm doing 150 lineups, he's probably going to be in there 149 times, maybe 150. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not the kind of slate where you have like an obvious pivot. So just play him. Don't overthink it.
Unless you want to stack up expensive bats, but I would just rather take the safe SP1 and move along. So the real question is going to be, what explosive stack can we confide in that isn't going to bankrupt our salary here, and also who's going to be our SP2. So right off the bat, the second best projected pitcher is Jared Jones. He had 12 fantasy points last time he faced the Cubs. The game is in Wrigley. The wind's blowing out only at like 5 miles per hour. I'm okay with him, but I'm not seeing him as a priority just because I feel like that's going to be a lot of salary invested in my 2 pitchers. But he's a fine play. He's coming in at 30% owned in the optimal 25% of the time, and he's the second best projected pitcher. But price might be an issue for me.
Yeah, I'm not getting to him very much. That's probably my stand that I'm taking on this slate. He's good, obviously. The strikeouts have been there. He's not super expensive for 9-1, but not the best matchup. It's kind of a low strikeout Chicago lineup. And yeah, I think some cheaper pitchers just look better in better matchups. And I'm more inclined to stack the Cubs against him than who actually played Jones today. I think he's okay. But if he's going to be owned, I think that's one way to get leverage is to play against him today.
Yeah, small sample size, I guess, but 225 ISO against lefties, 36% fly ball rate against lefties, and 50% hard hit rate against both sides of the plate. So Cubs lefties and a full Cubs stack is in play if he's going to carry ownership. So I am with you there for sure. I think he's fine, but I also would lean more on the Cubs just because I don't really want to play him at that price. But I'm staying in this game for the guy who I actually like a lot as my SP2, and that's me, Justin Steele. On the other side, obviously, we want to make sure the wind is not blowing out any harder than 5 miles per hour. If that stays, I feel pretty good about him here. This year, he's showing reverse splits. I guess, is he just a reverse splits guy across the board? Because it looks like it from the past 2 years.
Steele?
Yeah.
Pretty neutral, I think.
Okay, well, either way, 26% K rate against Southpaws. So the Pirates look like a pretty good K matchup here. And he's a good price at 7.3. He is coming in with the 3rd best projection. Not a lot of ownership compared to some of the other guys on the slate. And he's in the optimal 44% of the time. That is second behind Glasnow. So I like Steele a lot. Right now, I think he's probably going to be my second favorite pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, I would think he would be the chalk SP2 just because he's one of the better pitchers and he's underpriced for 7.3. Pittsburgh, not a menacing lineup, a lot of strikeouts in there, very low power this season against lefties, 130 ISO, 272 WOBA. Not a lot of barrels in that lineup either. So, yeah, Steele looks great. I think that's a pretty easy build, and probably single entry and cash game type builds. You're probably pairing Glass now and Steele. Even in large field, that's probably what I'm doing for the most part. There are enough alternatives where you don't have to go all in on those two, but Steele does look pretty outstanding for the price.
Yeah, moving right along here. Another guy that looks pretty good in a vacuum is Christian Javier. Obviously, Framber Valdez crushed the Athletics yesterday. They do have some power, so that could be problematic. And he has been atrocious against lefties on the year. 268 ISO, 11% K rate, 19% walk rate. So in theory, you could take advantage of Javier here. However, outside of his last game where he had negative 16 fantasy points, he's actually been pretty decent for fantasy. And obviously we know this is not a bad park for pitching, and the Athletics are not always a scary matchup. So I'm okay with him, but like I said, I very much prefer Steele. But at 7.8K as the pitcher with the fourth highest projection, I think he's still very much on my radar. Might be more of like an ownership thing. If Steele does come in as massive chalk, I might not want to eat two chalky pitchers. So he is a viable pivot in that price range, but he's a distant third for me behind Steele for sure.
Yeah, he's also third for me, but this is one of those things where I will probably play both sides in a larger field multi-entry format.
For sure.
His walk rate's like 14%. His strikeout rate's under 17% this season. Looks like he's gotten pretty lucky. He's historically good, but the strikeout stuff hasn't really been there in 2 years. So I'm not really convinced that he's a 30K guy anymore, 30% K guy anymore. And Oakland is decently powerful from the left side. Obviously, a lot of strikeouts there. They could boost his strikeouts tonight, but I will be having some Oakland. They are currently my second highest on stack, but Javier is also my third highest on pitcher. So I can see it from both sides for sure today.
100%. It really, for me, is just going to depend on, do I get to a lot of Javier? If I do, then obviously I'm going to be less interested in Oakland. But as it stands, I'm not like really excited to go play him. So I actually am with you quite a bit on Oakland here. Another guy that looks really good, at least in relation to the slate, is Zach Little. He is in Fenway Park, so that's bad. But he is facing a decent K lineup in the Red Sox. And just, you've mentioned many times when we talk about Boston, they continue to be a watered down offense that just is not very scary outside of like Devers and O'Neill. But he does not walk guys. His K rate's decent. He does not give up a lot of power. So the really only negative is that he's not like super cheap and it's a bad park. But 8.4K on this slate isn't so bad that I'm going to take him out of my pool. By the way, I believe the wind is blowing in this game too. 10 to 15 miles per hour blowing in on a cool night. So I like him even more. So I'm actually kind of adjusting on the fly here. I think I'm going to bump him up over Javier, especially since I do want to get to more athletic stacks. So I would probably put Little as my third pitcher on the slate.
I don't mind him, but it is a salary thing. He's fifth on the board for me at 8.4. Glasnow obviously at the top, and then I'm going cheaper with those next three spots. Littell is worth keeping in the player pool for sure for tournaments, just because he's been one of the better pitchers on the slate this season. And like you said, Boston's pretty watered down, not the most menacing group outside of the top 4 or 5 hitters. So there are some strikeouts to be had. I have faith in him putting up a decent enough score, but it is a bad park too, and the price. So not a core play for me, but I do get why he would be appealing.
Yeah, well, the problem is the rest of these guys I don't think are really worth talking about. So that is why I like Glasnow, Steele, Littell, and Javier a lot. So that's probably my pitcher pool with a sprinkling of Jared Jones, I guess. I don't think any of these punts really stand out. I guess with the wind blowing in, Cooper Criswell is fine, but it is a dicey park still. What guys left over here are guys that you're entertaining playing. Judging by your face, I I know that one of these guys is very, very owned for you right now.
He's fourth, so I have about 18%, but it's Quintana, only
Okay,
because he's 5-1.
that's true. Yeah.
So if you want to play Glass now, you can punt with him and still have enough for bats. He's not very good, but the Phillies are also kind of striking out a lot. No Trey Turner these days. Bottom of the lineup is pretty weak, and there are some Ks to be had. He's kind of reverse splitsy, so he projects decently against guys like Bohm, Real Muto, Castellanos from the right side. It's really just a price thing. He doesn't project that well, but for the dollar, he's fine. Like if he gets you 10 to 12 points on this slate, I think that might be adequate.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a little bit of interest in the Phillies, so I'm going to combat you there a little bit. I cannot fault you for the price play. I mean, he's 5.1K. But obviously 343 ice to the lefties on the year, small sample size to be sure, but 8.1K percent K rate, not good. 51% hard hit rate. So Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper specifically stand out quite a bit, but I think you could probably just get them as one-offs anyways. So a full Philly stack may not be super necessary. I won't be taking that dive, but as far as a salary saving move, I can't fault you for it at all. All right, let's go over to the stacks. Right now, Tampa Bay is coming in as chalk, which right away, because they're at 13%, if that actually holds, I'm off of them just on ownership alone on a 5-game slate. But with the wind blowing in also, that's even more reason for me to just shy away from the Rays. I stacked the Dodgers last night against Webb, so that was really fun. That was a fun game for me. It's fun. I scored 1 run, I think. It was not good.
Dominant showing.
Yeah. So, but obviously they're the Dodgers, and they're facing, I think, Brent Suter. So you can always go back to them for sure. Is he just an opener, or is he going to try to last as long as he can?
It's got to be a bullpen game. I think he's been in the bullpen, so I assume it's a bullpen game.
Okay, well, then either way, I mean, the Dodgers look really good there. That would be chalk on a 5-game slate that I would be pretty comfortable with eating. And then Houston also. To round out that top 4, though, as far as ownership goes, I'm kind of just going to fade the Fenway thing as far as hitting, just because the wind's blowing in and those two offenses are really chalky on a small slate. So by doing that, I think that's going to make my lineups different right away. And you mentioned Oakland, who I'm with you on. I think Dodgers, Astros, Oakland are the most appealing to me, and it's not surprising that they're owned right now. And then the one that would stand out, in my opinion, would be Chicago. As far as like a really low-owned stack against a decent pitcher in a spot where the wind's not really blowing out or anything, I don't think a lot of people are going to be on them. And obviously, judging by the stack ownership percentage, that figures to be the case. So how are you feeling here? Are you just going to eat some chalk just because it is what it is? It's a 5-game slate. Or are you looking to differentiate by going a little bit lower here in relation to the stack percentage?
It's hard to fade everyone on a 5-gamer. I think everyone's stackable by default, even Cincinnati against Class now, technically. Probably more of a mini stack than anything, but I don't think Tampa Bay is good chalk if they are going to be the most owned stack. It's not like Chris Well's been a gas can. He's actually been pretty good so far this season. And that's really not a good Tampa Bay lineup. It is a park upgrade and all that, but not the most menacing group, not a ton of power. Pretty average across the board. Dodgers, like a bullpen game, I don't generally like to pick on that, but that offense is good enough to stack every night, so I don't have any issue with it. The team I'm actually getting to the most right now is the Mets. It's a park upgrade going into Philly. Taijuan Walker's not a very imposing pitcher, not a lot of strikeouts with him. He's had some power issues over the years too, and it is a pretty good offense in terms of talent. They only have a 3.9 run total, but I think they're going to go overlooked as a result. And Alonso is the most expensive hitter there at 4.8. So you can stack them pretty easily. JD Martinez is affordable, Marte, Nimmo, even Beatty toward the bottom of the order. I think all things considered, ownership, upside, value, the Mets would be my number 1 stack.
All right. Do you find it a little bit interesting that Houston continues to have a really, really high run projection and they're never the chalk? I mean, they have failed. The last 2 days they were like
kind of were last night, I think, and they didn't do anything.
No, they had 3 runs, and the game before that, 2 runs. So it's like every time they appear to be in a smash spot, they just completely come up lame. The only good thing about stacking them in those situations is they've not been very owned. So third owned stack on a 5-game slate, I don't know if that's something you need to worry about that much. I do think it's interesting that they have the highest projected run total, and they are not the number 1 stack. We'll be intrigued to learn if that changes before lock. But as we're looking at these teams, I mean, Oakland is the one, as far as the top ones, Oakland's starting to be the one that stands out the most to me. Just because, we talked about them. We like this spot for them. Javier has not been great. The numbers don't really look that good. So they're going to be a little interesting. Still 11% owned, little hefty. But yeah, I mean, so are you like going in building around the Mets, or are you comfortable eating some of that chalk?
Yeah, I mentioned Oakland as one of my favorite stacks just because Javier is going to be kind of popular and good park for power, decent lineup, honestly, even though they're, everyone thinks of Oakland as like the trashiest team of them all, but they have been pretty good this season in terms of power. Yeah, I'll be getting to them. Houston, kind of the same thing. I'm somewhat neutral on them. They're my 3rd highest owned stack, so I'm not like way over the field. I'm probably going to be around even with them. All against Jones, just because he will garner some ownership. He has allowed 8 home runs this season, which is a lot. And this is a park downgrade for him going into Wrigley. So Cubs are a good lineup, decent power, especially from the left side. They look good to me. Not really on Boston at all. Not really on Cincy or Philly or Pittsburgh, but pretty much everyone else. I don't want to play Tampa Bay, but I get why they would be okay. But they're coming in 4th for me right now.
Yeah, so this is where I stand on this slate. I'm like pretty set on Glasnow and Steele. So I'm probably just going to go single entry mindset. Glasnow and Steele is my 2 pitchers. And then fading Fenway. If those 2 teams are going to be 2 teams that soak up a ton of ownership, I'm just going to fade. The wind's blowing in. It's not like super warm. It just seems like not a good, chalky game to attack. Definitely have interest in the Dodgers and the Astros. But if Jared Jones, who kind of struggled a little bit with the Cubs last time he faced them, which was his last start, if nobody is going to be on the Cubs and Jared Jones is going to be the 2nd owned pitcher, that's what it's projecting at 30%, I'm probably going to go in with a full Cubs stack, I think, in a single entry. But then I have no qualms running it, coming back with Dodgers or Astros or, these other stacks we talked about, Athletics, maybe even go with you with the Mets if I have to. But yeah, that's going to be my approach. But everything else we talked about, obviously, you can work that into your process. I will mention one more time, though, it is a 5-game slate. Even like a 3-man stack might be enough, like as far as stacking. Like you might want to mix it up. Like if you're doing many lineups, I think your system will kind of do that for you. But I would not just go in blindly and click the 100% 5 and 3-man on a 5-gamer. You're keeping it too tight, I think. I would start with the 5X or maybe 4X and just like let the lineup tool, after you make your own little tweaks, let it show you what is cooking, and then you can make your adjustments from there if you want to. That's just what I would do. It's too small of a slate to like keep it so narrow. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm more willing to play 4 stacks on a shorter slate like this. 3, I guess, is okay. I don't generally love 3 on any slate unless it's like a 2-gamer or something like that. But yeah, I think 4 and 5 are perfectly fine today. 3 if you must.
Yeah, like 3-3-2 or something.
Or 3-3, yeah, I don't know. 3-3-1-1.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying I'm going to do a 3-man stack and then build from there. I'm probably going to do 4X when I run my lineups. That's probably my starting point. I think it's okay to do 5X. I just wouldn't go as tight as 5-3, and I don't think you have to go a full 5 just because there's a good amount of good pitching on the slate, and it's a small slate. So anyways, that does it for us. Hopefully that helps you out. If it did, please give this video a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. If you hit at the end of this video, you will catch the NBA vid for the day. Thanks for watching and good luck.